Okay. Looks like everything is live. So, just another random session. Anybody pops in, they pop in. If they don't, you'll probably get me for about half an hour, maybe a little bit more, depending on how long I stretch out whatever subject I decide on. Um, Now, what subject do I want to decide on? That's the thing. I decided to go live. Didn't think of anything to actually talk about. I mean, I did still want to talk about crossovers, especially since I have the next Cross Zone episode for next week that I'm working on. And the concept that Jay Biggs came up with of Gradius, well, not really Gradius. He said Life Force, but Life Force is sub is a part of a sub series for Gradius and Contra. I think I might actually do that as a Cross Zone episode. Huh. I, it's an interesting thought because you're still fighting aliens one way or the other. It's just how do you combine them is the thing to think about. And that could be interesting. Well, little girl, get from under my desk. Um, I guess I could harp on this conversation of the Switch being eighth gen, which I have touched upon several times, but again, I'm only one person in the grand scheme of things, and many other people, for some reason, decide that the Switch is a mid-gen refresh for a machine that is completely different from it. It's like because it came out around the same time as the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, people want to equate it to those machines as far as like its positioning. But if anybody paid any attention, those machines only got made and rushed out. This is exactly what happened. They got made and rushed out because Microsoft and Sony didn't know what Nintendo was doing with the Switch. So if they don't know what Nintendo's doing, the only tried and true thing to do that would draw people's attention would be to boost the power of the current machines on the market, which it did. It did draw people's attention, but it didn't draw in the sales that they wanted. Sorry, kind of had to jump off for a second because my daughter was getting herself in the position on my desk where she would have fallen and hit her head. I had to catch her and didn't really want to have like all the yelling that she was doing be caught because she was just going to scream about not being able to crawl under my desk. So, but getting back to the point I was on about the Xbox, not Xbox, about the Switch not being eighth gen. Again, talked about this already. Um, hey, Dark Void. The biggest problem with the premise of people calling the Switch eighth gen is that I should have cut water with me, but the biggest problem with that is that people want to lump it in with the Wii U because the Wii U wasn't successful in the way that Nintendo wanted it to be. But it still made money, it still made profit, and they still moved on from that to finding a major success in the Switch. The biggest thing between the Switch and the Wii U is that they are completely different architectural types. And literally nothing from the Nintendo Switch works with the Wii U. You can take controllers from PS5 and use them on the PS4, as far as I remember, You can take controllers from an Xbox Series S or X and use it on an Xbox One. You can't do that with Nintendo. You can take also whatever hard drive you had in your PS4 or your Xbox One and transfer it over to your PS5 and Xbox Series and still keep all of your games on it and play a lot of your games. If I remember correctly, at least your Xbox One or PS4 games can play from it. So the argument gets nonsense, and like, and it is mostly because right now it just came across and I commented on it. The guy said that the Switch was a mid-gen refresh. I was like, just because it came out around the same time as Microsoft and Sony doing their refreshes, because again they didn't know what Nintendo was doing, doesn't make this a mid-gen refresh. It's a totally different machine. All the parts in it are completely different. It doesn't have the same type of architecture. Wii U was PowerPC. Switch is ARM. Now, Nintendo has worked with ARM before because obviously they did for a lot of the other handheld stuff. Why are you mad at the box? Hold on. God love kids tampering with things they're not supposed to. But that whole notion is like literally, you can't put a Wii U disc in a Switch, and you can't take a Switch cart and then put it in a Wii U and have it work. Are you two arguing again? You want to come here? Come here. Come here. Chill out. Yeah, come. You come here. Come here. So y'all not fighting. You come in. No, not under the desk. The other way. The right way. This way. You are not climbing under my desk. There you go. Now you get to see yourself. That's all you wanted. But but having somebody say that, and then when you correct them on it, well, I own this number of Switch games. I'm not undermining the machine. Okay, if you really just want to say that it's not comparable to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, okay, you can say that. But mislabeling its generational, its position is where it released generationally makes no sense. Just say they're not comparable machines. That's all you have to do. I like, people overcomplicate things. If you're trying to say they're not not comparable, fine. Everybody knows that. That's not like the strangest take on the planet. Like, it's just this whole thing of, well, if it releases within a certain amount of time, or these don't release in a certain amount of time with it, then it's not a part of the same generation. So that would make the Dreamcast not part of the sixth generation. It would be fifth generation then. By people's the way people are trying to talk now. And the guy tries to say, well, a company can release 2 or 3 games in a generation. No, JJ. Yeah, they can. For the 5th gen, Nintendo released the N64, the Game Boy Color, and the Virtual Boy. 3 completely different platforms. And each generation after that is just been 2. JJ, no, keep that off the desk. But it's been 2 per generation basically since then. Unless people are trying to say now the DS and the Game Boy Advance are the same generation. Like, it just muddies the waters in the weirdest way. If it doesn't work retroactively, it's not going to work going forward. For that to make sense, both of them have to work. Yeah, Trell. It's all about specs with these people. If it's not within their views of specifications, it doesn't belong in the generation. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He definitely, most definitely is having fun trying to be a little goon. I swear, he waits for these moments to do this because he was just quiet. He was just chilling out, playing. And the second he knew I was broadcasting, he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be a little goon and get up here and start messing around." Nope. Boy, you gonna stop trying to assassinate me like your name is Ezio Auditore. You won't stop that. No, it's not funny. Tried to take me out the helicopter last time. This time you tried to take me out of a truck trailer. The big one. Boy, he is trying to take me out. No, I'm watchful of you. I'm watchful of this. Nope. Nope. Mm-mm. That's twice. Twice in one bro. You really got it out for me. This boy trying to take me out. Y'all witnessed this. Twice he tried to take me out. What, you don't want me talking about your brother? Or are you mad that your face keeps going in and out? It's because of the filter, little girl. There you go. Now you're free to roam. But getting back onto the subject that I was on before my son tried to knock me out twice. Come sit over here. If it's going to be that big of an issue, come sit over here, little girl. JJ, stop with the truck. Gosh. Did you really have to? You had to just climb under my desk. That was the thing that had to be done. You know what, Trinell? well, Truck Coon didn't take me out, and it ain't. Well, we ain't going for round 3. We are not going for round 3. I'm not trying to end up in Sword Art Online. I didn't think about that. Little girl, why did you turn my Xbox on? Boy trying to take me out. Little girl trying to turn on all my consoles. No, leave it off. I don't want it on. Yes, leave it off. Yeah, off. It's weird how they were so peaceful, and I say, okay, cool. I can go ahead, throw a stream together real quick, and then they decide that they want to act up, and my son tries to assassinate me twice. Boy is sitting there working on his swing too. That's the worst part. He is plotting. Was that some good orange juice? You done with it now? Okay, you want to get that? Go back over there. Go back over there, JJ. He got me so good I lost my train of thought. I completely lost my train of thought for that. Oh man. Oh yeah. Onto the whole Switch generational issue thing. Like saying how many games you have on a platform or how much you like it or that you're not trying to undermine or demean it has nothing to do with whether or not what you said is correct. You don't have to like the Nintendo Switch to make a correct statement about it, or you don't have to dislike it to make an incorrect statement. Like I don't know where this idea that if you say, "Oh, I have this number of games," and I show pictures of the games, I don't okay, that don't make much of a difference to me. I'm not talking about whether or not you like it. I'm not talking about whether or not you have stuff for it. I'm talking about your statement being wrong. That's it. Like you can't justify your statement by trying to say, "Oh, well, I have all this stuff." And who cares? That doesn't defeat the purpose of what I said. That just makes you seem like you're trying to actually avoid the actual conversation. Like you say something and somebody corrects you on it, and then you try to say, "Well, I got all this shit here." Okay, and hey, what's up, 12 feet tall? And I've been good. And yes, I have been doing live streams a lot more lately. I've been doing at least 1 or 2 a week. So you'll probably see them crop up randomly. Oh, the Paper Mario remake, because it's not really just a remaster. It's a remake because of how it's being rebuilt. People are getting up in arms about the 30 frames per second for the Nintendo Switch. I don't care personally. Like for Thousand Year Door, I don't care. Like that's what they chose to do. They made a choice because it's not necessary for an RPG to be 60 frames per second. It's not going to make the game bad. It's still going to be the same game it was with some changes and enhancements. And there's a couple people getting mad because of a couple dialogue changes. Y'all want to know why those dialogue changes happened? Because of loudmouth people that go out their way to demonize things that are innocuous. And sometimes companies look at it like, hey, we want this thing to sell. We want it to do well. So we have to avoid certain things. They're still a business. Whether or not they keep everything true to the original game, some things are going to change in their business trying to sell things. They're not going to do very well if everything becomes a controversy over the most minor or, again, innocuous thing. Little girl, I do not want to hold your feet. You can stop that. Like, if everybody remembers back to when Xenoblade Chronicles launched in Japan and people found out that there was a bust slider for when you're making your character. It got removed in the American version because America was where the outrage came from. America is where the outrage came from. Or Western territories, I should say, is where all this outrage came from. So they removed it from the game. Which is weird, though, because I don't remember what game it was that followed that up. But there was a game that followed up with a crotch slider for men. Like, why is one acceptable but the other isn't? It doesn't make sense. But like, if a bust slider is unacceptable, then a crotch scale slider is unacceptable. Okay, little boy, you having fun, but goodness, can you like not yell? Yeah, I know you cannot. You can do that without yelling. Can you do that without yelling? He don't care. He don't care. He gonna do it anyway. I might. Honestly, I'm not the biggest Paper Mario fan. I think the series is interesting, but I'm not the biggest Paper Mario fan. So it's not like I'm chomping at the bit to have it. But if I do get it, it'll probably be later on. But if like people acting like it's the worst thing ever for the game to have some changes to it. Sometimes that's gonna happen. Things change culturally. When Paper Mario Thousand Year Door originally released, time was very different. Just like if people keep talking about they want Mother 3. Mother 3, if it was brought over today, would have to go through a lot of censorship type changes. Stuff that people would be mad about has to be changed, but for it to sell is probably going to have to get those changes. And in different regions, different things are more acceptable than others, and some things are less. You can't be mad about the company adjusting the game to suit the region that they're selling it in, or to take care of and handle issues down the line that they might run into with different entities like the ESRB. Yeah, perfect example. Tropic Thunder would be hated today if it released. Robert, let me check on them. Be right back. Yeah, I had to put out that fire before it happened. I have no idea why they called it Mother. You'd have to ask the original creator. It is Earthbound over here. It's just Mother in Japan, and the series is the Mother series. So that's why I just generally go with that because it's one is quicker to say than Earthbound, even though they're the same number of syllables. But Mother is quicker to speak. Um, But yeah, I was just going to say, Tropic Thunder, Robert Downey Jr. playing a dude trying to be a black man in a movie and trying to be portray the character he was portraying. That would get murked today if that movie was released. It would get horribly panned. Even though what he did in the movie was just be an actor. That's all he was doing. He was just playing a role. And the role was actually pretty funny. That movie was actually pretty good, but it would by today's standards, nah, you couldn't release Tropic Thunder. There'd have to be a lot of changes to that movie before you could release it. And Robert Downey Jr. would definitely be one of those changes. Like he would immediately be swapped out. Oh, I have it blurred mostly because it's just one is games and stuff, and I don't have it properly organized. So until I have it properly organized, I'm going to it's going to be blurred behind me. But two is also not everything that's sitting behind me right now is mine. So I'm like, and I don't want to display other people's stuff. So that's one of the other reasons I have the blur on. Now, when I do have all of my stuff sitting behind me, the blur will be gone. So, but yeah, uh, and once I organize it, I'll be honest, I have been lazy. I have been very lazy when it comes to organizing this. Phone call. Hold on. Sorry about that. Family phone calls happen. Um, well, if Metroid Prime 4 runs at 30, would that even work? I mean, it could be at 30 frames, but as long as they program the feeling of the game to work out, because you can prioritize your inputs over the visual feed when you're coding. If they coded it to work properly, it wouldn't make much of a difference. It would just look slightly slower. But with it being pretty much the same engine that they used to do the Prime remaster, which was still a remake, meaning they had to rebuild the engine and the assets, I'm doubting it's going to be below 60. But there's the possibility it could be. As long as it's coded for it, it wouldn't make much of a difference. Because Ocarina of Time on the N64 was running at below freaking 20 the majority of the time you played it, but it still it still felt right. GoldenEye 64, yeah, GoldenEye 64 was 30 frames. It was 30, somewhere between 24 and 30 frames. Now on NSO or Xbox is going to be at 60, but on N64 is at 30. So was Perfect Dark, but Perfect Dark had way deeper dips than GoldenEye because of how much stuff was in it. But yeah, that's a potential chance, but I doubt it because of because of the engine they're using. But I mean, it's a possibility. Anything could happen. We just don't know for sure. Will you stop kicking my desk, little girl? It's just one of the two. Like, as long as they program it to feel right, if we're talking about just strictly from a gameplay perspective, it's not going to make much of a difference. Naomi, stop kicking on my desk because you're about to make my monitors fall. Stop. And where it's going to fall, it will fall on you. So stop. I mean, hey, that's a preferential thing, but it just depends on how it's programmed. This is even I can't. I'm not gonna knock people for wanting to have games be 60 FPS. Only thing I say is, if you treat 60 FPS as it has to be the thing for every game you play, no matter what the circumstance of the game, that's where you kind of lose it. Because then you're requiring something that, again, if the inputs are programmed properly, you wouldn't feel a difference. But that again, that's just because I've been learning so much about game code that I now my mind isn't set that certain things have to be a specific way. So I'm not like, oh well, this has to do this has to do that. I'm more like, okay, what's the benefit of doing it this way versus the other way? If there's a benefit to it, I could see them making that choice. But if there's no actual benefit to it, I doubt that they do it. I doubt they'd be like, oh yeah, we're just going to arbitrarily make this 30 frames per second just cause. There has to be an actual worthwhile benefit for that to be done. And honestly, retro is more than likely not going to let it go below 60. At least not like, I mean, obviously, game could probably have dips if a whole bunch of stuff clamors up, but I doubt that they drop it below 60. Why can't we have options? Sometimes the option isn't the best option to have. Take for instance, Tomb Raider Underworld on PC. If you have that game playing at anything above 60 frames per second, it screws up the physics. It completely busts the physics. Because I remember my monitor is a 75 hertz. So I bumped the frame rate up to 75 frames per second when I was playing it. And there was one puzzle I couldn't complete because every time I moved the block just broke and flew off. And I was getting mad. I was like, why the hell is this happening? And I went and looked up on it. It was like, oh, it's breaking the physics of the game. So if the 60 FPS was breaking the game physics and they couldn't figure out how to get it done, I could see them do that. The physics broke for you at 60. That's weird because when I did it at 60, it was perfectly fine. It was above 60, it broke. I was like, man, what the fuck? I got to it was like it was one of the early puzzles too, because I think it was just after doing the opening on the ship, and I was moving around the cavern, and it just the box just breaks and flies off. I'm like, and I repeated this. I saved it, reloaded my save, and got the block back and everything, and then it just kept breaking. I was like, nah, I'm getting a little frustrated with this. But once I dropped it to 60, it worked perfectly fine. So it could have also been because it depends on also what type of GPU you're using. I know I'm using NVIDIA. So that might be also the difference maker, because if you were using AMD, there are different programming protocols for those. So it could be, or it could also even be the CPU. I just don't know which one would be the difference for you, because I'd have to know your unique PC setup. Hey, what's up, J Biggs? But if Nintendo were to say, hey, we're going to give you the option to play a game at 30 or 60 frames per second, or any other company doing that, that's fine. I'm not against having the option, but if the option breaks the game, I can see why they'd be like, no, we're just going to cut that. We're not going to do it. Especially if there's nothing that they can do to fix it before they launch, and they still have deadlines. So if they can't fix it before they have to launch, I can understand that. Now, if they fixed it post launch and they were like, hey, we'll just give you the option to do either one, I'm not going to stop against the option. That's why I get agitated with people now. Like, you have game consoles that will give you multiple different options for controllers, but you're mad at the option to have different controllers. I don't get that. Like, if you give me the option to make a choice, I'm going to make a choice. Oh boy, what did he's on his tablet? That's why. But again, it's not a knock to people liking one or the other. It's just okay. What did you do? You got real excited. What's going on there? Okay, JJ, calm down. But like, if they give options, I'm not going to be mad at it. Of course, if I'm playing, stop. If I'm playing an action-oriented game, I'm going to push for 60, because that's going to look and feel better to me. But if it does, stop. Boy is just picking the worst moments to interrupt me. Can I finish what I was trying to say? And without you making people's ears bleed? And he had to do it next to me, so it had to have been worse on that side. Oh yeah, I would definitely choose frame rate over graphics or resolution any day. Just like I'm gonna choose gameplay over story. If a game plays well enough, I'm going to choose gameplay over story. Now, if a game has a horrible story and the gameplay doesn't feel that great, I'm like, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I might not touch this. But I don't knock people for wanting 60 FPS. I just don't like the idea that, hey, this game has to have it because I say it has to have it. I have no idea why Nintendo made that choice. Again, it's not like I'm there making the decisions for the game. So I have no idea as to what they were doing with Paper Mario that led to them having to do 30 frames per second. Wanted to keep this, they could have even just wanted to keep the file size down. A lot of people don't realize that like changing the frame rate actually does change the size of the game. And they could have easily just decided they wanted to keep the file size down, so they decided they were going to just cut the frame rate. Again, I'd have to be there to know why they made that decision. That's the thing I'm looking at. I'd have to be there to know why they made that decision, because it depends on how much data they're streaming from through the CPU of the system. Well, a lot of people get bored on pretty things. That's why we got so many vapid people running around because they pretty and ain't got much substance. Depends on the substance. But with Paper Mario being a turn based, I don't see it as the biggest loss of anything because it's a turn based game. And yeah, there are some inputs that require your timing, but again, that can be programmed for. So that's why I took time to start learning about code because I got curious about these things myself. And I'm like, why does this game have this and that and stuff? Or why these two things clash when you do something? So that's why I've been learning about code through either watching different documentaries about different games or learning through the breakdowns that people do on different games when they go over like how certain things operate. So it is interesting as all hell, but unless you're actually into to listening to all the technical jargon and wanting to learn what it means, you would not want to sit through 2 to 3 hours of that like I've been doing. So, and the majority of people don't care. So that's another thing to think about. The majority of people aren't going to care. If the game is good, the game is good. And whether it be at 10, well, 10 frames is going to be a struggle. But whether it be at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60, or above that, if the game is worthwhile to you to play, you're going to play it. That's about the only thing I can say for it. Now, I am curious as to why they made that choice. Because I don't see anything in Paper Mario that would necessarily, at least from what you can see, that would make it difficult for them to have it at 60 FPS. Other than my first initial thought being cutting down the size of the game. That's about the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. But then again, maybe they put a whole bunch of extra stuff in it. We don't know. Because I've seen people making posts about there being new stuff in the remake. So if there's new stuff in the remake, that could have also dictated why they made the decision. Hope that makes some sense. Yeah, that's fine. I wouldn't say there's a traditional Paper Mario RPG type though, because even between the ones that have a similar style, there are still some differences. But I get what you're saying. It's more that style you're looking for versus what Color Splash and Sticker Star did. Some people like them. I mean, I'm flexible on it because to me, it's how the game implements it. But some people just don't even want to have that. So I understand. Just like I don't get mad at people for not liking the changes that have happened with Final Fantasy. I don't get mad at them for not liking the changes. Could be a good game, just not the game that they want. Simple as that. I don't know why they didn't remake the first one. Honestly, I thought they were going to do that when we heard about a Paper Mario remake before it was announced. But no, maybe they have other plans for it, and or they probably just decided not to because they already stuck it on NSO. But that doesn't necessarily make any difference. It's just potentially that's why he decided against it. Like if you already got it on NSO, they don't necessarily need to remake the first one. But being that the one for GameCube hasn't been redone for any platform or re-released on any other platforms, I would see that makes more sense to go for. Yeah, but that is an interesting question. But oh man, I am because of my kids delaying me and having a phone call threw me off. But yeah, I gotta go start working on dinner and also stop my kids from breaking things. Um, but thank you everybody for jumping in. I was sorry for having to drop off. There were 30 FPS F-Zero games on the Game Boy Advance. Well, not necessarily 30, but they were sub 60, and I know that from playing them. They were definitely sub 60. But I wouldn't be mad about it as long as the game played right. But yeah, I gotta go ahead and roll out. Thank you guys for listening in. Uh, tomorrow I'll be doing Game Idea Foundry Talk. I know Jay will be there with me. Going to be talking about doing a video game for Chorus. If anybody knows that anime or manga, that'll definitely be interesting to you. But I'm going to go ahead and pop out. Hope everybody has a good evening and day. And hopefully y'all enjoyed the stream. And these more random ones will be popping up. So just keep your eyes out. Because I'm not going to necessarily say when they're going to happen. All right.